You know what drives me crazy, Sherry? All those synthetic additives in pet food.
Yeah, I know. I love, though, that Northwest Naturals took the initiative and cut out synthetic vitamins completely from their foods.
Exactly. It's all whole food ingredients, nothing outsourced, nothing sketchy.
And everything's made in their USDA human-grade facility, start to finish, all in-house. I saw it for myself when I took a tour of their manufacturing plant in Portland. I was blown away by them processing meat for human consumption that was going to be sent to grocery stores right alongside the pet food.
Right? Like, that's unheard of. And that's the Northwest Naturals difference. Real food you can actually trust.
See it for yourself at nw-naturals.net.
And right now, Northwest Naturals is offering an extra 5% on GAP ISOs for current clients, plus an extra 5% on any new ISO if you're a new client.
Just use the promo code PetShopGirls.
Trade. Pet Shop Girls. Unleash your power, let's make some waves.
Hey everybody, I'm Sherry.
And I'm Carly.
And welcome back to the Pet Shop Girls podcast. This is a big one, Carly.
It is our 100th episode. Yay!
Oh my gosh, it's been a journey.
It's been a journey. It's been, you know what, it's been so fun. And then this podcast allows us to get out there and meet even more indies who are listening to the podcast. So I know there's a lot of folks out there. I was chatting with them at recent trade shows. You know, we're talking about how do we as retailers move from just taking that sale and being an order taker to really moving to a recommendation maker.
Right. And we've got a big treat in store for you today to help us navigate this and more. Oh my gosh.
And how to have those conversations
yes.
too. Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is improve the pet's health. And those conversations is what is going to start that pet's journey onto better health and a longer life. So on today's episode, we're so excited because if you've ever scrolled through pet health content online, chances are you've seen our guest's work because he is a 2-time New York Times bestselling author, soon to be third, a global speaker, and the creator of Planet Paws, the largest pet health community in the world. His videos have been viewed over billions of times, inspiring pet parents and pet pros everywhere to think differently about pet nutrition.
That's right. Today we're going beyond the sale with none other than Rodney Habib. We'll be digging into how indie retailers like you can turn everyday nutrition conversations into those powerful aha moments that empower pet parents, set your store apart, and ultimately improve your pets' lives.
It is Canada's sweetheart, Rodney Habib. Welcome to the show, Rodney.
Oh my gosh.
Yay.
All right. Yay. I know there's the patented yay that ends all of the inside scoops.
Well, thank you for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm super excited. Hey, this show is actually more Canadian than American, I would, in theory. It's like my first time.
It is now. It is
right now.
Yep, 2-1.
I'm representing Texas down here. So.
I love it. Shout out to B. Adams. She's right next to you in Texas. I love it.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, we all know that you are all about biologically appropriate diets. So I think I know this. I might know more about you, Rodney, than you know about you, Rodney. But okay. How did your journey into the biologically appropriate nutrition start?
Golly. How did that I don't even know if we have time for this entire show to give you
gosh.
I wish I'm infamous for such short answers, but it comes from culture. It comes from living my family, born and raised in Canada, then my family moved to Lebanon in 1995, and I went with them, and it was eye opener for me having a cat, feeding my cat at that time Hill Science diet, and then having my neighbors feeding the food that was left over from their meals that they would take outside and they would throw down for the cats.
Yeah.
And them boastfully saying to me that most of those cats there, and in Lebanon, it's pretty interesting. There was sadly, there was a civil war that broke out in, I believe it was around like the early 70s. And so people would attribute the age of the cats to when the war was. And so at that time, they would look and say, hey, all these cats and these family of cats you see here were all before the war. And each one has grown up with me and so on and so forth. Anecdotal, obviously, but still. And at that time in the 90s, that meant those cats were like in their mid-20s and older. And I was like, these cats lived into their 20s eating that, and I'm feeding this like sort of science-based ultra-processed food. I don't get it. And so watching culturally people feeding animals everything and anything, here in North America, we've always got those do lists, don't do this and feed this and don't feed that. That does not work. Go to Europe and see if anyone abides by those lists. Animals are eating exactly what are coming off the table. In fact, I would argue that in most countries there is like no one is even aware that there are specific subsets of food groups that like dogs or cats could or could not eat, versus here in North America where we have like all of these detailed, arguable, debatable lists. So I was watching that and then coming back to Canada and moving back here in 2000 and then having to experience the Canadian, North American 2007 pet food recall, and then the 2008 FDA scandal on chicken jerky strips that I was buying here at my local Costco.
That you got barred for.
That I got barred for.
Yeah.
Obliterating my dog and cat and being like, enough is enough. And really, really digging deep into research, science. Where do I go? There's probably no book, magazine, or article because, as you know, Carly, at that time, internet was brand new, right? Like 2007 is when Facebook first came out. It was really hard to get information back then. And so you had to go to your library, believe it or not, to try to get animal research and just reading a whole bunch of books.
I agreed. I started my store in 2006 and I had really no clue.
Oh, gee. Wow.
And yeah, you couldn't rely on any Facebook groups or anything. So
yeah,
I fell down the right path. Fortunately, you know what I mean?
That is absolutely so fair. And so when you had your store in 2007, 2006, the 2007 recall had hit. So that would have been a eye opener for you.
Oh yeah. Well, we immediately were like, okay, well, we're not going to carry any of those foods. And, we went down the education route on
so the bad
healthy foods.
Yeah. The bad thing turned into a good thing for you to steer you in the right direction.
It was a teaching moment. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a huge shift in the pet food industry in terms of retailers. It really opened up the eyes of retailers on how pet food was made and distributed. I think it shocked the life out of retailers to find out that the majority of foods that were manufactured and packaged were all from the exact same facility. And I think that's what really created that global shift.
Agreed. And it helped me carve out my niche as a store. Whereas before I didn't really have a niche.
Yeah. So. And okay, so back in that time where it kind of like fueled your journey, you didn't have a store then. But if we fast forward to 2011, that's when you opened your store?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. So if we fast forward to 2011, everybody today sees the polished videos and the best-selling books, and they think, well, this guy's known all these things all along. But what was one, if you're thinking back, putting your retailer cap on, what was that one failure or wrong turn in your journey that really taught you the most about pet nutrition once you were that retailer?
Listen, my retailer experience was probably the most unusual retailer experience in the entire world for anybody. I here in Canada, it was a very unique experience for me, and very many people are familiar with it. I think the first thing that had happened to me, Carly, was I really got to understand how that industry worked because I had no idea what I was doing. I had my first dog. I've never sold anything in pet food before. I, like most people, probably went looking for a franchise because you want to find somebody that's at least going to educate you and help you on how to do it.
Who has the blueprint? Yeah.
You know what I mean? I remember sitting with the incredible people, Brent from Tailblazers, the head of Tailblazers, who beautifully sent me this beautiful email back in the day. I remember he was like on Oprah Winfrey at that time, and he was like the man in Canada. When people like wanted to know who the man was, he was such a impactful person in bringing sort of raw food and Tailblazers across Canada. In 2004, I'm talking, right? So this is like a long time, 21 years ago.
Yeah.
And then Pet Planet at that time were exploding all over in the West Coast. And I was really lobbying very hard to try to bring a franchise, one of those people in to help me out, because I had no idea what I was doing. I knew that globals were there was a really powerful global here in Nova Scotia, so it was impossible for me to sort of break through that mold. Pet Value had not come through here yet. And so when I opened those doors and no pet food showed up to Planet Paws on my opening day, and there was 400 people of my community standing outside, that was my biggest shocker. That was the thing that floored me and my family, because I had just took out a massive loan and no truck showed up to my store.
Why did the truck not come?
So this is this was public back in the day. Well, I know, right? One would think that. So one thing that I didn't realize is how intertwined and how powerful franchises are. And so there was a few massive franchises that had gotten together and said, we don't want another store in Nova Scotia. And so he will not open. And yeah, they were powerful enough to make sure that that zero shipments made their way into my store. And if I didn't have good friends, my family worked really hard in this community, and my dad and mom, like, they would win every year, like the provincial community award, because dad always had a motto of every dollar you made, you put it back into your community. We had a lot of politicians, the mayor, the premier, a whole bunch of people that supported my dad's shop. When I went to them and told them what was happening, they took to Twitter at that time, which was really big. And they started tweeting that a local independent was being bullied by several of Canada's biggest franchisees and would not allow me to open. And it started to make global and national news here in Canada, which eventually some of the distributors had to crack and allow food to come to my little teeny 500 square foot local independent shop.
You know what? Well, okay, that was one I didn't know about.
That was an eye opener.
That was, well, for me too. But
and you may not want this on your and you may not want this on your podcast, but if you do, it's the truth of what happened.
I do want that. Cool. Because there's, there's good competition and then there's bad competition. That's bad competition. Like that and I want to say thank you for persevering through that and pushing through it, because you're a trailblazer. Like, you have set the stage for so many of us. You beat those hard paths so that guys like me could come along and do it really easily, right? Like that you already beat that path. So it's funny that you say too with Pet Planet. I was going to open a Pet Planet, and
they were magical.
I had 3 meetings booked with them, and 3 meetings they did not show up to. And I went, well, 3 strikes, you're out. Then I looked at another franchise, and then they kind of left me hanging in the lurch. And then I said, well, I wonder if I could do it on my own. And I did. So anyways, Sherry, you're chomping at the bit with your question there.
Well,
Sherry, I just saw a stat that blew my mind, and it's about poop bags. Can you believe 500 million poop bags per year end up in the landfill worldwide?
That's crazy, Carly. But that's why I love Greenline poop bags. They're the only poop bags that have been tested and proven to break down even in landfills, not on your shelf.
Right? I hate when poop bags expire. Like, what? Greenline delivers premium pet products without the premium price tag, because toilet paper for tails should break down, not break the bank.
And get this, they have poop bag holders that are handmade from upcycled old festival banners that are one-of-a-kind pieces of art. You'll love them as soon as you see them. Talk about zero waste and real creativity.
Oh, and I love that. They're functional, beautiful, and sustainable. And every purchase gives back. Greenline is a member of 1% for the Planet and donates 1% of every sale to real grassroots nonprofits protecting our planet.
So every roll you sell or every pouch you stock, you're giving Mother Earth a little hug. Greenline Pet Supply, eco-savvy products for pets and their planet-loving parents.
Learn more about this amazing woman-owned U.S. company making the greenest poop bag on the planet by visiting greenlinepetsupply.com.
And don't forget to mention promo code PetShopGirls for 10% off your first order. We really wanted to direct the conversation toward retailers from not being order takers and instead educating their community,
recommendation makers,
and becoming a recommendation maker. So, okay, I really wanted to ask this question because this happens all the time with, I think, every store. If a pet parent walks in and says, "My vet told me X," how do you redirect without overwhelming or sounding confrontational or disrespectful?
So that is probably the golden rule in anything that you do in life, whether you're a plumber, whether you're an electrician, whether you're a dairy salesman. It doesn't matter what industry that you're in. There'll always be somebody within that industry that's going to make a recommendation that may not be the same as yours. In other words, my opinion may be different than your opinion. And it's how we approach and how we communicate with each other that really kind of moves the dial forward, Sherry. I was full of piss and fire back in 2010, right? Like I was, is when you were delving into the industry itself. And, I had to start off with understanding, ooh, man, things here the fact that no food showed up in my place, that was one indication of kind of how this industry sort of gelled together. And then to move over into like sort of day-to-day life, I would watch brand A say the same thing about brand B, right? So brand A is saying, I have this and this and this in my food, and you want to stay away from brand B over here. And then it moved up another tier to where the vets around me, the clinics around me had their take on not only brands, but also nutrition as a whole versus the retailer's take on nutrition as a whole. Mm-hmm. And in the beginning, like probably a lot of people, when somebody says you're stupid, you say you're stupid back, right? I mean, that was just kind of how that would work.
Human nature,
right? So the vet down the road said, you're an idiot. Oh yeah, well, I think they're an idiot, and so on and so forth. And if you get stuck in that bubble, that is a terrible, terrible way to not only communicate with your client, because then your client's like, wow, man, like there's a pissing match going back and forth between my veterinarian and my local retailer. And I'm not sure I like the energy from this person or that person. So they're going to pick a side, right? And so I really never want to, at that time, I really never want to put anybody in those type of situations. So I learned and adapted very quickly. Listen, I got to cool down. I got to bring down the fire here. And I want to understand why the vet is saying that. So I kind of want to cut the middleman out, which is the pet parent, and find out what that veterinarian's take is. So guess what I would do? I would call or I would email the clinic, and I would invite that veterinarian out for a coffee and, hey, let's have a discussion. And many vets in my city can say, Rodney, back in the day, you used to email very politely, hey, look, this was my take. What are your take? And I really found that over time, that was, this is, Sherry, and I would really wish I was short with my answers, but it would get to the point where not only would I invite these people out for coffee, but then I would also involve them in my work to help critique my work and make my work better. So in other words, if I was going to write an article on spay and neuter, because I was writing at that time for Dogs Naturally magazine, I would share it with my local vet and get his take, right? I would involve them, showing them that, hey, look, I'm going to send all of my clients to your clinic because I want to be able to support you. My hope is that you return them back to me. And if there's a break in communication, that you would relay to me first what you may not like before you say to my client, don't go back there, buy the food that's here on my shelf, and so on and so forth. So it was basically, let me support you, and my hope is that you will turn around and support me. And that has worked very, very well for me, even with the things that I do today.
It's so much easier than making enemies.
Yeah, well, that's what I was just
Yeah.
going to say. Your short answer, Rodney, is you made them an ally.
Yeah.
You know, you collaborated with them to make them an ally. I know that when folks walk into my store, a lot of it is word of mouth because I helped their neighbor's dog and nobody else could. And so now they're coming to me or whatever it is. And when they say, but my vet said, I'm completely upfront with them that I'm not here to bash your vet. I am not a vet.
So smart.
But I just know different things than your vet might know, right? And so that's how I start the conversation every time is that I am not a vet. So I am not going to give you medical advice. I can give you nutrition advice and I can talk about whole foods and I can talk about supplements and I can tell you about things I've seen that really work well. I just know different things than your vet, but I'm not a vet. And so I'm like, my team, everybody knows we don't give medical advice. We will give advice on what we have expertise in. And then we will always be saying, like, you need to work with your vet. And we always want them to work with a holistic or integrative vet and as much as possible so that the understanding's there. But we just had a brand new vet clinic open down the street. And I went there with my little gift and my little card to welcome them to the neighborhood.
So awesome.
Yeah.
So
like,
awesome.
I don't want the fight. I don't want a war with vets where we ultimately all have the same goal, and that's to keep the animals as healthy as possible. So I'm wondering, Rodney, if indie retailers had that one sentence in their back pocket that they could reframe a pet parent's thinking when we're all bombarded with the advertisements on TV and the advertisements on social media by the big pet food companies who have deep pockets and are telling us that our dogs will live forever eating on their food. And the pet parents are kind of believing that. What's that one sentence I could keep in my back pocket to just kind of reframe their thinking and start the conversation?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm going to make it a long sentence, but it's why is it that in human nutrition sciences, we're told by scientists and by the medical community to eat as much minimally processed food as possible and to avoid as much ultra processed food as possible.
Yep.
But in animal nutrition science, why is it the opposite? Why is it upside down? Feed as much ultra processed food as possible because it's science, and don't feed minimally processed foods because it's not safe and it may give your animal diarrhea. So it starts there with asking that question. Yep. You know what a really simplified way to say it is, why is it when your animal is sick and you put them on chicken and rice, do they seem to get better? When you were feeding them originally ultra processed food and you switched to minimally processed food and they got better, and then you go back to ultra processed food.
Yes.
Did you not connect the dot there in that one brief moment? And that's a huge aha moment for a lot of people.
Yes, I love that. I know, like, I phrase it a little bit differently than you, but I know that
probably better.
No, never better. But when the conversation starts, I usually say, we've been told our whole lives to eat more fresh food and less processed. So why is it different
for
our
mom,
animals?
her mom, like my mom would slap the shit out of me if I ever like grabbed like a fruit roll up and I'm outside rolling it up and eating it like like slippers. Like my mother was so famous with slippers. You just see it coming through the sky. Her and my grandmother. And if I show you the scars I have on my head from them when just eating ultra processed food. So yes, this is something instinctual that all of our families told us, right? Like, man, your mom told you that. So like, it's pretty interesting. I've actually gotten through doors with like board certified veterinary nutritionists just saying, I'm not saying anything your mother didn't tell you. And then it's like, it dawns on them for a moment. And they're like, okay, yeah, all right. Maybe you're right. Okay. I'll talk to you.
I like that. That's a great way to put it.
I'm envisioning the slipper like with a boomerang, like
I can't.
That reminds me of my Italian family.
I can't tell you. I can't. You get it then. Yes, you get it.
It's funny.
Okay, so we're talking about aha conversations.
Yeah.
What about an aha conversation that has gone wrong for you, where you realized maybe you overwhelmed somebody? Ooh. What did you learn from that?
Rodney, just so you know, too, Sherry has accused both you and I of somehow overwhelming people when she's the elevator pitch queen. Yeah. But she says we might overwhelm people.
You know, I'm in Dallas, so people are go, and so I have to condense everything down to like
everything's bigger in Texas except for conversations.
And that's the best. I mean, look at social media, right? Go make a 20-minute video and go make a 60-second reel and tell me which one gets more interaction. You're 100. Yeah. Listen. if you can't explain it properly, what is it? Is it Albert Einstein that said that? If you can't explain it short and
6-year-old.
proper, then you don't understand it yourself, right?
Yeah.
I overwhelm every. I don't, Sherry, I overwhelm every. How long did it take us to get the podcast started today?
Oh my gosh. It was
matter.
like 30 minutes.
I overwhelm because I am such a curious creature by nature. I just love having conversation with especially incredible people like yourselves, because there's just so much to learn from everybody, right? Like everybody knows something that you don't know and they can teach you something. And so I'm just such a curious creature by nature. And people would come into like Planet Paws when I first opened my doors. I had to tell them about the salt divider. I had to tell them about first ingredient. Like, this is old school stuff. Like maybe more people today knew that than back then, but sure, you get it, 2006, you're going through like, I had to tell them the difference in food adulteration. And like, I had to tell them all this. So these poor people came in just to look at a bag and they were looking, and gosh, I don't want people to kill me, but there used to be a very popular brand in Canada called Chicken Soup back in the day. And it was like the brand, right? Like,
wait, was it Chicken Soup for the Soul?
No, that's a book.
You got it. No,
well,
it's a book,
we
and
had
it was
it
a
too.
brand of food.
Oh, and it was
we had
I
it
only
too.
knew
You had to
about
be
the
old
book.
school. You had to be old school, Carly. You had
Well,
to be
I
old school,
never
Carly.
carried it, but it was very popular. Yes.
It was very popular. And it was my teacher. It was that brand helped me educate a lot of people in terms of like the salt divider. Like you take it, like everything that was on the front of that package was below salt. And I overwhelmed so many people that not only did they not buy anything, but then they left and they were like, oh, to the point that my neighbor had to come to me like down the road and said, hey, I sent my friend over and she just left overwhelmed. So maybe you could like just tone it down a bit, keep it short and concise.
Thank you. Yes, Carly. Are you taking notes?
It can't happen. I have too much to share. Listen, okay, here's how I've tried to not overwhelm people. One, I make a joke about it in store, right? When they come in and they're like, do you have shampoo? My dog is itchy. I'm like, what is your dog eating? And they're like, what? And then the 45-minute conversation happens. And halfway through there somewhere, I usually say, I know you're probably thinking like, lady, shut up. I came for shampoo. And here you are talking about food. But that really is what's going to fix the problem. Shampoo is your Band-Aid for diabetes. So, yeah. And then I have my props. Of course, I have props all throughout the store. But I also have a lot of takeaway information. And I confirm for them or verify that, yes, I'm sure I have overwhelmed you. I don't want you to feel like you have to remember everything I said, because I know I talked a lot. So get yourself a bottle of wine, sit down in the tub. Here's your homework. And then they can just QR code scan things and then get it in bite-sized content.
I do ask people, if I'm in a long conversation, I will say, okay, let's pause here. Are you doing okay? Am I overwhelming?
Can I get you snacks?
If they're like, no, keep going, then I'll keep going, but yeah.
I'm not that.
You know what my staff did to me? My shout out to Mandy, my manager. You know what they did to me in the end, which kind of contributed to the success of social media, was go write something down on paper. And I can't write, so I get my sister to do it. Go write something, and I had to verbalize to my sister on a cue card. We're going to just put it all on a cue card, and then we're going to put it beside the items. So as an example, milk thistle. Rather than me destroying you with information on milk thistle when you don't even know what milk thistle is and you don't care what milk thistle is, but I want you to care. So I am not pulling you in with information. I am just pushing information directly onto you. My staff would then make cue cards, which worked out to be so phenomenal that then, email was such a thing back then. They would start taking people's emails. I created a Facebook page, and then I would take that information, I would put it on a meme, and I would post all I wanted to say on a meme for my customers. And then they would read it, and then this magical thing happened. They would just come in the store, pick up the milk thistle, have it scanned at the counter, and they could walk out the door.
Right?
So easy.
Well, okay,
yeah.
You know what? I love that you're going there and I love that you talked about the salt divider and the first ingredient, because my little story is, before I opened my store, I wanted to know my stuff. I came from the world of training adults, where you kind of got to know what you're talking about. Otherwise, they don't take you serious. And so I really felt like I needed to know my stuff. And so I thought, I didn't want any random dog food sales dude walking into my store telling me they got the best food under the sun, and I wouldn't know any different. So at this time, I did not know that a Rodney Habib existed. So I certified through Dogs Naturally. I should have known, I guess, but I certified in pet nutrition, raw nutrition, advanced canine nutrition, all the things. And Dana's brilliant. She knows her stuff, but she also uses words that are 14 miles long, and I've never heard them. And I've got to stop the video, and then I've got to like Google, what does this mean? Oh, it meant fat. Okay, so then carry on. And somehow randomly, I ended up down a rabbit hole where I found the incredible Rodney Habib. And what I loved about it, though, was all of the things that I was trying to absorb through Dogs Naturally and somewhat struggling being completely new to the industry. Aside from having dogs, I had never worked in the industry. I didn't know the language. I thought pet food was pet food. But you made it make sense. And so then, you know, I was watching your videos. I'm like, that's what she was talking about. Like, I get it now. And so I think why that really appealed to me is being a trainer in my former life, and I was teaching technology. Lots of people are technical, lots of people are not. And I had to make it make sense in the middle so that techies could understand and not get bored, and so that non-techies could understand and feel empowered. And I think that's what really resonated with me with your videos, is that you made it make sense no matter what my level of education was. So when we look at that from a retailer's perspective, what kind of language can help our retailers bridge the science that maybe not everybody understands with something relatable that everybody can understand? Because you do that very well, Rodney. And you're
the master of it.
I'm 100% master, 110%.
So thank you. And so it's interesting because when you look at communication, I was sort of inadvertently trained by my own community because my family had owned like a local convenience store, pizzeria. There were many people from different languages, like that spoke different languages, different ethnicities. There were people young and old that every day would come into the convenience store to buy something. And so you learned at a very young age that communication was different with so many people, especially people like that would come in that couldn't speak English, right? So you had to learn very quickly, you know, either with visuals, with kind of like gestures, communication, and so on and so forth on how to communicate. And so there was that aspect into what made its way into sort of the retail space for me was, you know, it's really hard to be an introvert and be a retailer, first and foremost. Let's just get that out of the way, right?
Yep.
I'm an introvert. Anyone that you talk to will tell you, I live in my basement. I never come out. I just read science. I'm a huge introvert. And like Dr. Becker's a massive extrovert. Like you just can see the differences there. And for a retailer to come out of his shell to be able to communicate, first and foremost, is really important. And then communicating as simple as possible is very important. So I could never understand. Dana Scott was brilliant in terms of like understanding like chemical compositions of things, which is very important, right? And you envy that sometimes when you hear people speak on such a high level. Our famous Canadian psychologist, Dr. Jordan Peterson. Like when I would hear that man speak, I couldn't understand what he's saying. But I could feel the energy behind what he was saying, but I couldn't understand a single word of what he was saying because he was just so much more intellectually higher than I was with the type of language that he was using. And so I would use these sort of examples of people that I would meet in my day-to-day. And then as a retailer, when I was sitting in my shop, I really had to very quickly understand the level of how I was going to communicate with that individual. And the more that I could dumb it down, the more that I could talk to somebody like a 6-year-old, I found the easier that people were able to resonate with me. And this was one of the hardest things, try to get a scientist to do that. When Dr. Becker and I were filming the Dog Cancer Series, and we would sit with Nobel Prize winning scientists and say, can you explain that to a 6-year-old? Can you tell me what cancer is to a 6-year-old? You want to watch somebody break down? They couldn't come down to that level because they were just so genius, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but if I was down here and I couldn't come up way up there to your level, somewhere in here, there's going to be a way that you and I are going to be able to communicate and understand very easily. But I can't be embarrassed to tell you that I don't understand because there's something about, especially being a retailer, right? There's something about if you don't understand it, then there's that imposter syndrome. And then therefore that client came to ask you for advice. You don't really know,
Right.
but you don't want to show them that you don't know either because it looks extremely unprofessional. So I guess it was, to make another long story short, it was having to understand everything that was in my shop, why I was selling what I was selling, and how I could bring it down to such a level, to like a grade 6 level, a grade 7 level, maybe even a grade 9 level, where we could have that conversation and I could keep it to the point that we both understood it before you left. Understanding it, Carly, is really important. And that's what, with my content, when I put my content out, how can I talk to a 5-year-old? How can I talk to a 15-year-old? And how can I talk to a 40-year-old with the same sentence and the same video or the same meme, and everybody understand it?
Yeah.
And I've found that people really resonated with that.
And it's, okay, we're in the world of social, right? And short form content videos are what's popping. But if we confuse the viewer, you're getting swiped. So you're right. So the removing that confusion, having that understanding yourself, but then figuring out the way to communicate so that the majority, you want to cast the biggest net as possible. And when I say your dog is dehydrated if you're only feeding kibble, and here's why, everybody knows what that means. And then I've hooked them, right? And then they're going to watch because they're like, what? My dog eats kibble. Why is he dehydrated? But yeah, that's exactly what you said, right? You have to speak the language. This is, I think I learned this back in my corporate days. I worked for the provincial phone company. And I remember hearing when I was very, very new to the company, one of our directors came in and gave this, we're all excited. This big wig is coming in to talk to us. And he said, you guys have to remember that the rest of the world doesn't get up and think about phones every day. We do. And I'm like, and it was that at that moment I went, oh my God, he's right. But as pet pros, we have to remember that too. We're the only ones that get up and think about pet food every day.
Right.
Your customer doesn't. So we're speaking an entirely different language to them. I realized that when I would train new employees, I'm speaking a language that they don't understand. So I literally made a terms and definitions of the pet food industry for all of my brand new employees, so that when I'm flapping my face about BHA and BHT, they know what I'm saying.
BHA and BHT. Wow. I love it. Nobody ever says that. I love it.
Yeah. I learned it from you. So you don't say it anymore.
I really want to ask you this one, Rodney. If you had to bust one piece of jargon that you keep hearing in the nutrition space that keeps people confused, because we're talking about confused people.
Confused customers.
What would it be?
Oh, man. There's so many. You asked me that question any day, Sherry, I'd give you a different answer. Like last month, it would have been people don't really understand definitions, and the way that pet food companies right now are marketing the life out of pet food in terms of like raw, dehydrated, freeze-dried, air-dried, semi-moist, gently cooked, pasteurized, raw. I mean, there's so many definitions that, and in the great Cape Crusader, Susan Thixton would say, most of them don't even have a legal definition. So these are kind of made up interpretations. So really, you and I couldn't argue with this. If I said to you, what's air dried? And you gave me a definition and I gave you a definition, there's no record book to go get a definition.
It's all marketing puffery.
Yeah, it's all marketing puffery. Like Karen put my book back here. And I know that this is audio, right? But like AFCO definitions, right? Like, go through like every like model.
It looks like a really thick Bible, you guys.
It's a thick Bible of just definitions. And, you start going through a lot of these definitions. A lot of these words are not there. And you're like, how did that word make it? And then you start to look at like ultra processed food, let's say, and you look at a bag of kibble today and it says our ingredients were raw, and they'll put in big words, letters raw. So there's a buzzword.
Yep.
We gently cook these foods. There's a buzzword.
Yep.
We use wholesome ingredients. Well, there's a buzzword.
Yep.
Natural.
We freeze dried. It's natural. We freeze dry coat it. Okay, so it must be freeze dried now. You would be shocked how many people will look at a bag of kibble and they put, ingredients were raw. We use raw, wholesome ingredients. So that's raw food. or we coated it with freeze-dried. Oh, that's freeze-dried food, right? It's confusing the consumer with labels. So, I mean, that would be last month's. I didn't think that was a problem until so many people said, this is what I feed my pet. And then you say, oh, and then they show you the bag and you're like, oh, right. So there's a giant subset.
There's a lot of new brands out there that have raw in the title, but it's actually a dry food. And it is very confusing. Yeah.
Well, because Big Pet knows that there is a movement happening, that the pet parents are looking for fresher, less processed, raw foods. So they're trying to slip that in wherever they can to make them believe that you're feeding raw. Yeah.
Go look at packages. You'll be mind blown. Just walk through a store and read all the buzzwords that are on the front of the package. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so confused.
Yeah, I know. I'm waiting to get barred from Walmart. But I should just probably stop making videos in the middle of their aisles. But I have to do that sometimes.
Carly, you know, running an independent pet store can feel overwhelming sometimes, from managing inventory to planning promotions. That's why I personally use Retail Smart Guys. They're not just consultants, they're true partners who genuinely care about the success of independent retailers and wholesalers.
And I think the best part is they help with so many aspects of your business, like buying plans, budgeting, marketing, bookkeeping, and even staffing strategies. It's like having a full retail support team without the huge cost of hiring one in-house.
Exactly. And they do it all at a very fair price. I love knowing I have experts in my corner who understand the unique challenges of small businesses.
So Pet Pro, whether you're a retailer or a wholesaler looking for smarter ways to grow and thrive, check out Retail Smart Guys. You'll get the guidance you need and the peace of mind you deserve.
Because smart businesses use Retail Smart Guys. And right now, you can get a free $1,500 inventory analysis when you use promo code PetShopGirls.
Find them at retailsmartguys.com. Okay, so the whole kind of theme of this is that we want to move our retailers who are maybe stuck in that order taking, like, oh, I'm here to get my dog food. And it's like, here you go, sir. Have a nice day. See you next time. Into those recommendation makers. So if we just kind of go right back to the beginning and we think about our indie retailers out there today, what are the dangers for our indie retailers if they still maintain that order taker mentality? What are the dangers for them?
Yeah, it's you know, they used to tell me in the business model that you have from year 0 to year 5, and then you'll peak at year 5, and if you don't do something different by year 5, then you start to drop, right? So your best time might be like year 5 of your business, and then you start to drop. And I don't know if that's changed today. That's what marketers would tell me back in the day. I think the most dangerous thing for a retailer is to not consistently keep learning for their client, right? Because when you bring your client into the door, sometimes they might just be the client because there's Carly, there's Sherry, I know these guys, I love them, and they're just going to come and support you. They don't ask you really questions. They just ask, how's your day going? And they ask you about your life, right? And we know those people. And then there's others that come in and they want to talk to you about the health of their animal. And that usually is kind of like the majority of people that sort of walk in through that door. If you're not consistently evolving in terms of knowing your stuff when somebody comes in other words, if I'm a mechanic and I bring somebody in a 2025 model of a car and they look at it and they're like, I've never worked on this car before, I'm not really sure, and they talk to you about like an older model and what they may do, you're not going to trust that individual, and nor do you want them to help you in any certain way to be that sort of that coach on the team that's going to help them with their dog. So that would be one. The second dangerous thing is not working with your community. When Planet Paws started, and we were talking about this, in a few years, it was a tiny little 500 square foot shop that got close to about $2 million in sales. That's kind of public knowledge. I know the National Post, that's a Canadian newspaper, wrote about Planet Paws and sort of like how that grew so quickly. And really, I attribute the growth to working with my local community. I would not be where I am if I wasn't working with my local dairy farmer who I wanted fresh kefir. So I would go to the farmer's market. I made a relationship with him. When I wrote my blogs and videos, I would tag him. So I would help grow his social page. In return, every single kefir that he sold into the local supermarkets, into the human space, he would say, you haven't heard of Planet Paws? You got to go visit those guys. Word of mouth referral was massive for me. And it's very dangerous for a retailer to really not take advantage of word of mouth. If you really want to rely on dropping money for advertisements, spending so much money, they used to tell you in the olden days, spend like $40 a customer and put up a billboard or put up a poster or put up a sign. Sure, I'm sure there's something there, but nothing is more powerful than word of mouth, man. Sherry, I worked with every single local independent you could imagine, like fermented vegetables. Look, I'm not saying don't support a manufacturer. And today, all manufacturers try to make everything. They'll make your ultra-processed food. They'll make your minimally processed foods. They'll make your kefirs. They'll make your fermented vegetables. And they'll say, look, I have a display of everything. Fantastic. But I'm going to support you on some ingredients. I want to support you, the manufacturer, but I'm also going to support other people. And so like my fermented vegetables, I go to my local farmer's market. I'd support my local fermented like sauerkrauts and things that I knew that were exponential for the microbiome. And I would support that local maker. And then I would write like a little write-up or send an email out to my clients about, hey, look, I have a new fermented vegetable. It comes from this incredible client. This incredible maker of these fermented vegetables. And then I would tell their story, like give me some points. Oh, you started 50 years ago. You make this in your kitchen. You're getting local ingredients. Then they would go support, you know what I mean? They would go have the conversation with her. She would then see that I'm writing all these beautiful blogs about her. And so every fermented vegetable that she sold, she'd say to somebody, go visit Planet Paws for your pet food.
Yeah.
And one by one, my entire province started to support me. I was involved with everybody, Carly and Sherry, in my local community. So now I was supporting all of my local small business manufacturers in whether they sold like turnips. I was supporting my broccoli farmers for the love of God because I knew that fresh broccoli, sulforaphane, and so on and so forth. And so they would drop off on the weekends like broccoli. So I had a small produce section in Planet Paws, and I would sell that produce to people that would come in to, hey, you should put some fresh broccoli on your ultra processed food. And here's the research is why you should do it. Or it would be a gift for me to my client. So I would support my local broccoli manufacturer. I would buy the broccoli from him and I would give it for free to my client when they were buying their ultra processed food. He put it in your family's salad tonight. It's organic broccoli, or put it on your dog's food. And it created this giant support system within my province of me supporting my province. And in return, my province supported me. You want to escalate your business like 10X. I'm not a marketing guy, but it sounds like I am when you say you want to market at 10X. But it really grew really fast. Not because I'm a dummy when it comes to like marketing, but I knew that supporting your community will support you in return. And that really helped. And I think it's dangerous, to answer your question, to not do that.
I think from everything I just heard, see, I'm going to be the Rodney summarizer. Isolation is what's dangerous.
Yes. And I agree. In the beginning, I thought that I could just do it on my own. But over the years, I've learned that since I've partnered with other businesses, and it came to mind, there's a goat milk farmer that's 45 minutes away from me, and she brings us fresh goat milk. I need to make a post. I just made a note. I need to make a post about that and take a picture with her and promote her too. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's when I was at the Toronto Pets Canada show, there was a brand new retailer. He just got his store in June. Super great guy, super ambitious. He's all bright and shiny because he's brand new to the industry. He's also a new Canadian. And we had a long chats. But he was telling me, he had a rough start. He is a new Canadian. And unfortunately, the previous store owner, when he took over, went to the community and said, don't support him. He's an immigrant. And, so for 2 months, he said the first 2 months
that
were really,
happens.
yeah. And I said the exact same words to him that you just talked about. I said, you have a community around you. So you need to get out there and support your community, and your community will come back and support you.
It makes
every
it so
way
much
that
easier.
you can, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I said, and you ignore her, because she is a small-minded person who, like, you were nicer than I was, because he just said, I just crossed my arms and I said, God bless you. And I said, well, you're nicer than I am. You're a bigger person than me, because I would have had some other words for her. But I said, good for you. And now you just keep doing you, and you forget about her, because
So
you're going to make
smart.
this happen. Yeah.
Yeah, so smart. Isolation. Sherry. So isolation is definitely the key word. And it doesn't have to be just supporting local makers. If you ever spoke to any one of my elementary schools, my junior highs, and my high schools around my hometown and in around Planet Paws, they will tell you I volunteered at every single event that I could. I would do bingo nights when they needed a bingo caller at those schools. I would donate proceeds back to my local parks, my local dog parks, to the government, to the city to rebuild and restore. I would donate to my local libraries to rebuild books. Man, if you can... And I know it's very hard for a retailer because every dollar that you make, you want to invest it back into your business. But if you can invest maybe your time, it doesn't even have to be money, into your community, you will see that return. You know how many children go to like an elementary school or go to a junior high? Those are all people, when they see you volunteering and trying to help at those schools, they come back and they support your local business. And I can't tell you, like that's 500 new clients in just like a little, I know in America, Sherry, you guys got like millions of people at your schools, but here in Canada, like 500 would be a lot to a school. But that's 500 potential new clients because you're going to that school saying, I'm here to support and try to help with your kids and your children and so on and so forth. Guess what those parents do? Hey, let's go down the road and support Sherry and Carly's shop because we always see those people supporting our kids at the school.
Yeah. I know we could talk all day, but I really wanted to ask this question. Because I know you go into a lot of different pet stores all over North America, and maybe even in other countries.
He's coming to Regina next. Regina next.
When you walk into a store and pretend you're a customer, what would make you instantly trust or distrust that store or the person that's giving you advice?
The staff. Your staff are the representative of who you are. When you're using the bathroom and your staff get a hold of a first-time client that walk in the door, when you go out for lunch, when you go home for the night and your staff take over, they represent all of you. You are, I never get this analogy right. I always try to say it. Maybe you guys can say it for me. They always say on the ship, yours from the captain all the way down to the, I don't know what the heck they call them, the stowies or whatever they're called, but they always say you are the best, worst person who's on your ship. Right? Because in other words, like the worst person on your staff represents you. And I mean worst person in a nice way. That sounds terrible, but
the weakest link.
Yeah.
The weakest link, right? Because you can only, what happens when you leave? The weakest link comes in who has zero pet nutrition knowledge, right? Because everybody usually starts at ground zero. And then you can either write a manual or you can do something, right? But you're not there. And then that staff member comes over to you and gives you that, I posted a meme the other day, but I had to delete it because so many people got offended, right? But, it's like when that store clerk walks up to you, Carly, you walk into a different store, Sherry and Carly, and then the store clerk comes up to you and says, can I help you? Or can I give you advice about this food? And you're like, oh, I know so much more than you. Do you know what I mean? That sort of that every 2.0 pet parent says that anytime somebody in a pet store approaches them. So there has to be, when somebody first walks into that door, it was always very important to me that my team knew exactly what our philosophies are pertaining to trying to raise the longest lived and happiest pet in the world. And my location became, it was more important for me, information than anything else. So information was so important. It didn't matter if you bought anything, it's information. So if somebody comes in and visits into that shop and you are hit with bad information, it almost breaks, the distrust is almost right there, right away. Even though that you might have somebody down the road that could back you up. Oh, Sherry wasn't working that day. You should talk to Sherry. You probably just got a new staff member, let's just say. But sometimes you don't get those second chances.
Yeah.
It's too late.
So this is, I'm going to go a little bit off track, Sherry. Don't slap my hand. That's something that I think a lot of retailers struggle with, is because they ask me all the time, how do your guys know what you know? And I'm like, well, my training. But what would be a tip that you would give a retailer on how do I get my team to know what what I know, what you know,
I made them
Rodney.
come to
Like,
my house. I made presentations for them. I made them come to my house. I swear to God, I had presentations for them. My team members will tell you back in the day, like I would, I'm not Planet Paws anymore. Back in the day, like I would set up presentations in my house. I would give them presentations. I would make I wouldn't make them, but they would have to read like the blogs, the memes. I would come back at night and then we would have those questions pertain, like, you have your kind of like your staff meetings.
Yeah.
There was, a lot of staff meetings, unfortunately today in the retail space, sort of delve, a lot of it is around financials, but not enough of it is for information, right? And so we never took our information from manufacturers ever. We would research it ourselves, and then we would have our information that was designed for us, that made us unique over everybody else, right? Because if I am a manufacturer that sells you, let's just say, a certain type of pet food, I'm not just saying it to you, Carly, but then I'm going to Sherry's shop and I'm telling her the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So then both of you are telling me the same thing.
Yeah.
So there's no advantage between both of you because you got your information from the manufacturer. So you're both going to just tell me the same thing.
Exactly.
So our information had to be unique with us, but I was the one responsible for providing that information to my staff. So I was the one that had to make sure that they understood it fully, from all the way from my smartest staff member, my manager, who's like brilliant, all the way down to the brand new girl that just came in. So take them out for dinners, go out for like group walks with your dogs. But those walks always had a purpose. Hey, we're going to learn something today and we're going to talk about something. And then I started to involve my staff really in all of my work. They'd be in my videos, they would be in my memes. And then I would encourage my staff to make their own memes and videos and sort of promote them that way, which, just to try to engage them into wanting to learn more about nutrition.
I love the idea of like a training pack walk. That's awesome, right? Because you're just
100%.
And I think because you take them out of the training environment, it's not a traditional training environment, you take the pressure off. It now just becomes a conversation that everybody's involved in, and they'll retain more of that.
Of course.
I know, like with my folks, I have always said to them, I never want you to read the bag or the box to my customer. They can read it.
Yeah.
I want you to tell them something that they went, huh? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Like, tell them something about what that food can do.
Smart.
Okay. So I know that this was something Sherry and I were talking about too. And this is maybe Sherry's, because she likes her elevator pitches. So Sherry, we were talking about if you're a retailer in your store by yourself and you've got that great big lineup, but you've got that pet parent who's like, they want to have some big, huge nutrition conversation. I know when Sherry and I talked about this, I said I would struggle with this. But what is that kind of 30-second version that I could give them to give them something of value? But I got 8 people behind them that I got to get through the tail. I personally would say, give me a second. I got to finish here. But do you have
But if they didn't have a second, you've got to condense it down to 30 seconds or they could be gone forever.
So there you go. There's Rodney. How do you condense into 30 seconds when they're like, I want to talk nutrition, but you don't have the time and neither do they?
It's hard. It is. It's very, listen, I would love to give you a snazzy answer. You could watch, like the brilliant Dr. Karen Becker could do that in 10 seconds if you have to bring it down, right? It is hard, Carly. It's especially when you're passionate about it, right? Because your passion, there's those of us that are able to explain very easy, and there's those of us that have to take you on a journey, a circle of a story, right? It's all about storytelling. We learn through storytelling. Every single piece of information, I was listening to Dr. Andrew Huberman saying this the other day, every single bit of learning and retaining information is done through a story. So it's those that have the skill to tell the story in the shortest amount possible. I would sometimes try, like if you saw 8 customers, to try to pull them all in with the story. Like what would be something that would be so fascinating that I could, right?
Yeah.
And you try to pull them all in with that common source of, it's called mind coupling in TED Talks, where you are speaking and the audience or the people around you are all coupled, you're mind coupling, you're on the same wavelength and frequency. And you can look at somebody and tell whether they're interested or they're disinterested in that conversation, right? Yeah. So it is very difficult, but you're right. You would be way more efficient if you could have it so compartmentalized. But here's the problem. everybody is on such a different grade level when they come in for nutrition, right? Like we all have different perceptions. The perception of food is different for so many people. You know, we talk about this all the time, right? Like reality is coupled to one's perception. So if perception to you, I've made this reference a million times. I remember Jamie Oliver would go into elementary schools and he'd hold up vegetables, right? So he'd hold up hamburgers and hot dogs and all the children could define what they were looking at in an image. But then he'd hold up green peppers or eggplants and the kids had no idea what they were looking at, right? Because they were unique vegetables that people didn't have in their households. But there was a bowl of kibble there and everybody knew that is pet food. So how on earth are you going to tell somebody about raw food that's in the freezer when their perception of dog food are round pellets on the shelf?
Right.
And how can you do that in 30 seconds, right? And I'm sure there are many people that have that skill, and I envy those people with that skill. But you have to meet somebody sometimes, unfortunately, where they're at, and then you start with your, let me enlighten you on this. And so I'm the worst at that.
That may be though, Sherry, an opportunity. Like, I mean, we usually give them to all our new customers. It's called, it's got an image of a dog with a shush over his lips. And it says the dirty secrets the pet food industry doesn't want you to know. And I did that. I was doing a presentation for school kids. They invited us there because it was awesome. So we taught them how to read a pet food label, right? But awesome. We kept those cards because that's the homework I send people home with. Yeah. And so I could do that, I guess, if the customer's like, I got a bunch of questions.
Putting something in their hand, like showing them a QR code, whatever. Yeah. But putting something in their hand, they're more likely to go deeper or they're more likely to come back.
And you're going to have it logoed and branded, right? So that they remember where they got it from. And even when you guys are talking about like, is the person interested? And how do you keep their interest? Now I'm going to give you a poker tip for how you know if somebody's engaged. Everybody thinks the eyes are the windows to the soul, but it's actually the feet. When people are when people, this is for poker, okay? But
she was like semi-pro poker.
I'm not semi-pro poker. But if somebody is really engaged in the hand, and this comes from an FBI profiler, their feet will be pointing at what they're interested in. So if you're talking to somebody and their feet start to drift away from you, you've lost their interest.
Bad.
Yeah. So as a retailer, maintain eye contact, but then every once in a while, take a look down at the feet. And if their feet are starting to point to the door, they want to leave.
Okay. We're almost to the end. I just wanted to put that on.
No, we're having a good time. So, we're having a good time.
Okay.
And you know what? I mean, the longer we keep you on here, the better chance there is that Dr. Becker's going to come. So then,
any minute. Anyway, she's going to get on a plane tonight. So any minute. You'll see her
she's going back tonight. Okay.
With her little wheelie cart. You'll just see her come wheeling.
Okay. What's the last question you want to ask before we go into our rapid fire?
Oh, we're going to do rapid fire.
Well, I wanted to add just one quick thing to what you were saying about the nutrition spiel. One thing, you just reminded me, these are things that I never have conversations about. So I love this conversation because I get asked just things on a different level, right? I never get to talk about these type of things. My team, I would support a local company in British Columbia called Organic Matters. And these guys, they're still there today and they make a whole bunch of organic bulk herbs, right? So if I was going to do a blog, let's just say on milk thistle, and I brought up milk thistle before, but let's keep it there. So first of all, I would support Organic Matters. They would sell me milk thistle in bulk. And then the team would make tiny little sachets, little pouches, very inexpensive of milk thistle. So if Carly came in to buy something and I wanted to stop and talk to her about milk thistle and she was in a rush, she was busy. Like you said, the 30-second spiel, it's hard to do it then. When you give somebody something for free to benefit their animal, in other words, we would give them a little tiny packet and say, today when you're feeding your kibble, here's a little bit of milk thistle. Here's the cue card. They would ask us. They would stop and be like, what is this? Why am I giving it? And it was a way to pull people in with a story rather than pushing information on them. Then you could present the information about milk thistle. Now, not only do they buy a bag, but now they're leaving to give their animal a detox, rejuvenating liver cells. Mm-hmm. It was a win-win. Mm-hmm. And it was just like a tiny little packet of milk thistle that maybe costs cents, but it meant a world to my customer or my client because I was just helping them rejuvenate their animal's liver.
Because givers get.
Mhm.
This is what Bob Nagan from Whizbang says all the time.
There you go, see?
And that's 100%.
Brilliant.
And that would be super simple to do exactly what you're saying, Rodney, is we all have access to Vistaprint and Canva. So we make up our little cue card or our little information card that is attached to these novel samples that they're not getting anywhere else because manufacturers don't send us samples of milk thistle. So you make your own. Yeah. No,
yeah,
that's
because
awesome.
most people do treats, and treats are awesome, but I'm a super nerd. You gave me a little tiny bag of milk thistle. Oh my God, this is the greatest day of my whole life, right? Or you're going to give me a small little bag of medicinal mushrooms, and you can show, science can show that medicinal mushrooms can do A, B, C, and D. That's unique, but it's also longevity foods. Like I'm giving you something that can promote a longer, healthier lived pet per se, right?
Yes.
And bones are nice, like little tiny treat, but I'm not saying those aren't awesome. Those are great too. But I don't know, maybe I'm a weirdo, but my clients could tell you over the years. Yeah. Like I was giving them like the craziest things that you could imagine pertaining, like a little bit of chicory root in a little bag, #1 source of inulin, prebiotic for the gut microbiome. Like these are just things that fascinated me, but they also fascinated my clientele as well. So
yes. Yeah. And then I guess if you are plagued with the same ailment as Rodney and myself with the gift of gab and the inability to make things short. And so I always say to Sherry when we're talking about things, I'm like, okay, let's make it in between Sherry and Carly. So not as short as Sherry, but not as long as Carly.
Because I'm really short. Yeah.
But we all have access to ChatGPT. So you literally could dump all of your things into ChatGPT and then say, put this into something that fits on a tiny little cue card that is most effective.
I'm sorry, did you buy bulk chicory root too? Unpackaged that?
Yeah, chicory root. Yeah, because chicory root is the #1. So if you looked at the #1 prebiotic in the world, it's chicory root. It's why you see it in every bag of kibble in the world, because it is the #1 source of inulin, which a lot of animals lack in the diversity of your microbiome, right? So you've got your probiotics, but they need prebiotics to eat to create the postbiotic, which is the chemical reaction within the microbiome that communicates with the body. So if you don't feed your gut microbes, you'll kill them off, which is why it drives me crazy in Canada. Raw food companies that put like 3 or 4 ingredients in their pet food and say, that's all you need. No, you are going to deplete that microbiome very quickly. And so chicory root is such an ineffective, but such a beneficial prebiotic that you could put in like a tiny little bag, or like dandelion, right? Dandelion is the like #2 source of inulin for the microbiome. You go to I would go to Superstore, which is here in Canada, they call them Loblaws, and they would always put on sale organic dandelion for like $3 a head. So we would come in and we would mince them up in the store in little fresh bags, and we had a tiny little fridge there, and we'd open up the fridge and we give people fresh dandelion, because it's so impactful and so many vitamins and minerals and so impactful for the microbiome. So is
that Miss Shuby?
That's little Shuby right now, because it's 1:30 here my time in Nova Scotia. She's like, it's
lunchtime. Walk time.
Walk time. But but there's so many unique things that for your clients, we would give people dehydrated dandelion root or tea bags, right? Because there are so many calming teas and fantastic teas that I could get. So whether it was mushroom, whether it was lavender, whether it was chamomile, it wouldn't matter. But we would gift those because they were a way to enhance that dog's diet on that day with a small little sample, because most people are afraid to buy supplements because what if my animal doesn't eat his food? But if you could provide and show them that this not only has benefit, but your animals are fine with it, the next time they come in, they buy a bag of milk.
Right.
They buy a bag of
I just never thought of buying. I love buying in bulk and dividing it out. So I just didn't think about it with supplements.
There's Frontier in the United States. I know you guys have it. I used to always buy from Frontier, but then couldn't get it across the border. So I would go to Organic Matters. They would sell you big, giant bulk bags. Like we would buy calendula flour, because you can make so many different types of concoctions with either anti-soothing, eye cleaner. Calendula is a multifactorial flower petal that you could use for so many things, and we would put them in little tiny sachets. You buy a big bag of like calendula for like $10, but you could distribute those petals to thousands of pet parents. It's such a cost-efficient way, and they could use calendula for like so many. Pumpkin seeds, right, for an incredible source of manganese. Brazil nuts, be it 1 Brazil nut a day would be your daily requirement for selenium. So there's so many incredible food categories that you could buy from like a bulk manufacturer that you could bring into your store, but that could also promote other products. Because if you sell a jar of a supplement and that product happens to be in it, you could refer that to the client and say, look, you took a I don't know, like a Brazil nut today is a weird example, but then you had a supplement on the shelf that had Brazil nuts in it. Let's just say with amongst 10 million other awesome things, you've not only educated your client as to why it's important, selenium being a longevity supplement, but now you've engaged them and they feel brave enough, because many pet parents are scared to put that additional add into the bowl. What if he gives my dog diarrhea? What if he doesn't want to eat his food anymore? You give them a free opening with a tiny little packet, right? And so, those have been very effective.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm glad that we're talking about nutrition, because that was going to be like one of our last kind of questions leading into rapid fire is, what is that blind spot that you think our indie retailers may still have when it comes to nutrition education?
It's hard when you have to pay the electricity bill.
Yeah.
And you have a client that's on something, but that you know that there's something better. That's hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when the client comes in and he's routinely coming in to grab, like I remember Neil Cropper, a famous Canadian that owned the Grizzlies line of food, and he approached me one day at Super Zoo and he said to me, Planet Paws is so known. Why on earth do you have kibble in there? I don't get it. Like, you're the guy that preaches about minimally processed food and better health, and you know it's better, but I can't understand why you have it. So for me, it was because it's the latter in bringing my client in and then eventually bringing them up. I think with a lot of indie retailers, they're afraid to go to that next level, because I have client A who comes in every day and they've been buying that one bag religiously for their pet, and I don't want to lose that client.
Yes.
And so that dollar and paying the light bill puts that restriction, that wall there. It's those who are brave that may come up to that client and say, hey, Joe, I noticed that you've been buying that bag down there for like 5-6 years for your pet. Did you know that, like, if you bought this bag or that bag, or you added a tablespoon of this other end product, in my opinion, it's going to be better, and here's why. And I think that's a hard one for pet parents. And I remember Nature's Variety years ago, they did a statistic on that, where you had your client that came in for product A all the time, and you were too scared to bring them to product B, which was better in your opinion. And then the animal got sick, so they went to another store, and the other store put them on product B, and guess what? You lost a customer.
Yep.
And like, well, why didn't Carly and Sherry tell me that? You guys never told me that was better. I had to go to the guy down the road, and he told me it was better. When you knew the whole time it was better, but you didn't want to lose them because of the dollar.
Yeah.
And I think that's one that indie retailers, it's hard, right? It is really hard to put, somebody can say, yeah, that's easy for you to say, I got a rent to pay tomorrow, so I don't want to lose that client. But Nature's Variety showed a statistic back in the day when I attended their conference, how many retailers lost customers because they weren't brave enough to talk to them about raw food at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy down the road did.
And
he took
because he had
point.
And it makes sense, because the guy down the road had nothing to lose.
He had nothing to lose.
Right.
Yeah.
And you did, because you could have lost that client.
That's right. But I think when we talk about that, and I've been saying this since the day my doors opened, and it's probably okay. So the Saskatchewan Roughriders, I mean, they are your favorite team too, Rodney. You can deny it, but we all know.
I love the Roughriders.
Canada's sweetheart loves Canada's football team sweethearts. Yeah.
Love green.
Yeah. And I know when I would go to the football games, like, all I cared about was Gainer, which is our mascot. It's Gainer the gopher. And, my friends would say to my parents, like, when they would ask my friends, how did Carly like the game? She just watched Gainer the whole time. And my mom's like, it's because he's an animal, right? I think it's because I've always loved animals. And that's where I think, like, I didn't know there was a term for it when I opened my doors, that to put your pet above my profits. But that was always my mentality. Like, even if I didn't sell you stuff, I didn't care if I was helping your dog.
Right.
And I say that to my staff all the time. If the answer is add an egg from their fridge to make that bowl better. We didn't sell them the egg, but I don't care. It made the dog better, right? Or like, that's a bad example, but
no, but it's a great example. It's fantastic. And you can sell the egg, by the way. That's all I had at Planet Paws. I'd support my local egg manufacturer, and they would every week bring me dozens and dozens of eggs. People don't think of that, right? Because you think eggs in the supermarket. But the egg dealer at the farmer's market who has free range eggs, who's trying to pay his electric bill, how much awesomer, which isn't a word, but we're going to go with it. When your client comes in and you say, those are fresh eggs that literally just got dropped this week, and here's why you need to put that egg in there. But no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off from your analogy. But Carly, that's what makes you and Sherry so unique, is you're willing to take the bullet for the chance of improving the lifespan. And that's, you're comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's, for a lot of people, they're not, and that's okay, right? Not everybody has to be like us in terms of, okay, I lost you, but I made your pet better, right? Or at least I gave you the information to make your pet better. And then it's up to your client to decide ultimately what they want to do. But that's why you are who you are, because you're willing to take that chance.
Well, and you know what's funny is I had this lady come in. So she's obviously lives in Regina, and she came in and she couldn't thank me enough for how much I had helped her dog, and you helped my daughter's cat, and like everything you said, nobody else had told us, and it all worked and everything. And I'm like, well, that's so awesome. And thank you so much.
It's the best feeling.
And I don't recognize her, right? But she says, I work at this local butcher place, and I wanted to bring you some like bones for dogs that you could see if you wanted to sell. And I'm like, okay, cool. So she leaves, and so now I have her card, and I look up her name in my system, and I'm like, she's never shopped with us, ever. And so, but so she's seen my stuff on socials or whatever, and I have helped her dog. But this is what I keep saying to my staff too. Even if they don't buy from us the first, second, seventh, 18th time that they come into the store to get help, when they need help and they need to buy or they want to buy, we're going to be top of mind. They're going to come back to us because we continue to help them for 16 months and they never bought a thing from us. But when they are when they're ready to buy, they'll come. So
on that note, that was a very good story. Let's do some rapid fire, which means we got to keep our answers shorter.
Oh.
Okay.
And then you just heard dial tone from both Rodney and I.
Yeah, both of them just gave me a look. Okay.
Okay. I'm going to do this.
Okay. We're going to try.
Okay. So our answers, or Rodney's answers, have to be 30 seconds or less.
Okay. That's good.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you starting?
I'm gonna kick it off. Yeah. Okay. What's a pet health belief you used to hold strongly but have since changed your mind about?
Variation. Oh.
Many people used to tell me all the time that feeding a complete and balanced diet, that there was enough variation in there to diversify a microbiome for a long-lived pet, and you didn't need anything else. This was a long time ago. And then when you sit down with a microbiologist, you really understand why it's important to vary your diet. So brands are not going to like this, but it's really important for pets to rotate through companies and brands to get variations.
Yep.
Because even though your pet might love diet A, if you don't vary their microbiome, you're not going to like the results when you do a microbiome test on your pet.
Yep.
Is that 30 seconds?
Yeah. It was only 10. You got 20 more. No. Okay. I'm going to go back to the indies for a second. What is one myth that our indie retailers should be busting immediately for pet parents?
Golly, they're not going to like this. Geographically, if I lived in Canada, that putting 5 ingredients in a food and saying that's the way that animals eat in the wild and you should feed your dog like a wolf is maybe the worst advice ever in the history of mankind. Here in Canada, we don't have any regulations. We don't even have no AFCO regulations. And there are companies in the US that do the same thing. They sell supplemental foods, but they lobby them as a philosophy and they twist it around feeding your dog like a wolf. And I think that is the biggest myth ever. I can't answer that in 30 seconds, but I tried.
No, that was good. Good.
That's a good one.
Okay. What is the best piece of advice you've ignored, but it turned out fine anyway?
Well, that feeding animals minimally processed, fresh, home cooked meals wasn't going to harm my pets. I learned that very quickly. I was told in many times that reaching to the refrigerator and that feeding foods was going to harm my pets, but it was culturally watching other people doing that globally around the world. When you get your dog from down south, whether they come from Cuba or they come from the Dominican, if you're crazy to think that they were eating ultra processed food down there and being nourished, they were most likely eating minimally processed foods. And then when they come to your home and you introduce them to ultra processed foods, you see that digestive disaster that happens. It was the fact that it was okay to feed my animals minimally processed food and nothing bad happened and everything turned out to be okay. A lot of people are afraid to feed minimally processed foods. A lot of people are afraid to go to the refrigerator and feed a carrot.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep. Okay. Speaking of all your travels and all of the experts that you've interviewed, was there one moment or conversation that completely shifted your perspective on pet health?
Yeah. That would be the dog cancer series. When animals would have cancer, Carly and Sherry, I think it was instinctual with all of us to know that, sugar was a supply source to cancer. So I would always say to my clients, let's get you on a raw food diet right away. Let's get you off of ultra processed food. Let's get you off the sugar and kibble. And I would just switch them immediately to raw foods. And then I was slapped in the face with reality when I realized that protein would spike glucose, which would in turn spike insulin, which could then replicate cancer cells, in a very layman way of saying this. So I was schooled very quickly on the importance of macronutrients, especially pertaining to cancer, and that just putting a dog on raw food, as I was told by my superiors, the elders in the vet space, would fix everything. You could tell very easily that a dog could be on raw food and still get cancer. So understanding the complexities in terms of nutrition. Look, genetics and environment and many things play a factor in cancer. But to think that raw food potentially couldn't because there was no sugar in it, I was schooled very quickly on protein. That's a really complex answer, and I know that maybe, but that's the first thing that came to my head because my dog was diagnosed with cancer.
Yes.
I switched her to raw food, but I couldn't get that friggin' tumor to stop growing. And I was like, well, she's on, what more can I do? And then when I went to Boston College and cancer researcher, Dr. Thomas Seyfried, told me the protein was my problem, and I modulated my protein and I brought my fat up. I put cancer in remission. I did many other things. That was a very short way of saying somebody could hear this and be like, what? But had I not regulated her protein and brought her fats up, I wouldn't have been able to slow cancer growth. So that was probably the biggest thing for me pertaining to nutrition that really schooled me. I thought protein was everything.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. No,
Okay, we've been talking about other countries and how they feed versus how North America feeds. Which country or culture do you think is leading the way in pet wellness, and what can we learn from them?
Finland.
Okay.
Finland. They flipped the food pyramid on its head. All the research that we get currently today on the benefits of minimally processed foods, Dr. Anna Hjelm-Bjorkman and their team in Finland, those guys are just moving the needle there with information. And a lot of that country feed home prep meals to their animals. In fact, a lot of their 12,000 plus surveyed studies come from many of their countrymen that feed from the table and incredible ingredients in their foods to their pets. I think that if it wasn't for the Finnish scientists, we wouldn't have the data and we wouldn't have moved as quickly today as we would have without them in terms of the evolving of pet food. We talked about this early in the conversation. New research and surveys show that on a global level, 61% of food that's sold today is dry kibble. And 10 years ago, that would have been maybe 100% or 99%. That dial, it might not seem like a big drop, but in the billions of dollars, that is a massive drop in a short period of time. And I would attribute a lot of that to Finland and how people in Finland feed their pets.
Nice.
Okay,
Rodney. Not that you're ever allowed to leave, but if you were not in the pet world industry, what would you be researching?
Mushrooms.
Okay.
All right.
I would buy them. I almost bought a mushroom farm because of when I see what the benefits of mushrooms. Multiple human studies show that people that consume 18 grams of mushrooms, just 2 medium-sized mushrooms a day, there's that stat, 45% drop in cancer. I know that's an overwhelming stat, but all-cause mortality.
Yeah.
People live longer that consume mushrooms. I'm so fascinated by them, and I do believe that they are the way in terms of health and longevity for our dogs and cats. I said to myself, if I ever left one day, what would I do? I would buy a wild mushroom farm, wild cultivated, and I would try to help heal the world through the benefits of medicinal mushrooms. I just find them so damn fascinating.
There we go. And the lovely Angela Ardolino would be right there beside you, agreeing 100 steps of the way.
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. One final question is, yeah.
But wait.
Oh,
I
sorry.
was just going to say, was there anything else that you wanted to give without any of our preemptive questions?
Okay.
I would just say how enjoyable this conversation is. This has been such a unique conversation because both of you have superpowers that in most conversations that I've had with people, I have not spoken to two incredible individuals and humans like yourselves with your superpowers in your field, in what you do, and how we can relate, because my path is your path. And this was so awesome. We're about to hit 2 hours.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. So
listen,
I just meant that's how awesome the conversation is.
And this is also, we're just taking a page out of Inside Scoop. That's all. We can go for another hour.
I love it.
So this last one's for our listeners. If every indie retailer listening could walk away with one mission for their stores, what would you challenge them to do differently starting tomorrow?
Support your local community, and they'll support you back, and support at any level that you can. Support the school that's close to you, and those parents will support you back. Support the independent, whether he's an egg farmer, a dairy farmer. Go to your local farmers market, support those farmers, and they'll support you in return. Support your community, and your community will grow you back. A strong community, I can tell you, can move mountains. And many people feel isolated within those communities. Find out who your mayor is, find out who your counselor is, find out who the principal at that school is, and establish relationships with those people. Don't go in looking for just go in and say, how can I help?
Yep.
How can I make our community better? And I promise you will move mountains.
And that I think importantly, because most times Sherry and I are saying, hey, you get your brand out there every way you can, right? When people come to you and say, hey, we're doing an event, give them samples with a gift card so they come back to your store. But what Rodney's talking about in this particular instance is completely different. It is coming from a place of simply giving to your community without the intention of trying to bring them into your store. That will naturally happen with just the genuine intention to give. If I'm understanding. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Good people help good people. And when people see that you're trying to help, or you're trying to make the community better, I promise you, I've got 20 years of experience in this, they will return the favor.
Yeah.
Right? You went to my girls' soccer game and you handed out treats to all the dogs, and you didn't ask for anything. You just handed treats to everyone. So we came back. We want to support you. I can't tell you how many people have done that. My parents are Lebanese. They both grew up in villages. And in those villages, there was one store. And so that one store supported the entire village. But he needed the support from the village. And if I told you what that one store did, that little tiny hole in the wall store for that village, that store paid for almost every type of repair in every road, street. It did so much that was not expected of a tiny little convenience store that was there, but that's how they supported each other. And support is critical.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, so on that note too, Rodney, I want to thank you for supporting us.
Yes, thank you so much for your time. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this was awesome. I know that a lot of our regular listeners are excited about this. I kept hearing it in Toronto, how everybody can't wait for the Rodney episode. You will be our 100th episode on the Pet Shop Girls.
Oh, this is so awesome. Awesome. Yay.
Yeah, lots of people are looking forward to it. And then, of course, our paying Substack subscribers will get extra Rodney. Yeah. So you haven't had your fill yet, pop over to Substack and we'll have extra Rodney.
And Rodney, do you want to plug anything? What are you working on right now?
Oh, a third book that I wasn't supposed to talk about?
Be careful what you say.
A third book that I wasn't supposed to talk about. So the next year will be just a year of traveling everywhere, but we'll try to put out and bring people along with us, and try to, give people as much tidbits and information even before this thing comes together.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and we'll have all of your contact information in our show notes. Everybody knows where to find Rodney. If you don't, you're living under a rock, and it's time to come out from underneath that rock so that you can learn from the great Mr. Rodney Habib. So, thank you again, my friend, for for spending time with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right, Pet Pros. Until next time, bye-bye.
Bye.
So long, everybody.
All right, Pet Pro, that's it for this week.
Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe.
Just hit all the buttons.
And if you want more, join us in the Indie Insider, our private Facebook group for pet pros.
Then you'll never miss the podcast that makes you sit, stay, and beg for more. The Pet Shop Girls.
Pet Shop Girls.
Hey, Carly, so I was just talking to Art from Aardvark Pet Products about the advantages indie stores get when they white label.
Ooh, spill the tea.
Well,
Hey, I could do that.
hey, Art, what are you doing here?
I couldn't help myself. I'm sorry. All right. Here's the deal with our private label program. The independent retailer can take advantage of our low minimum order quantities so you don't have to tie up your cash flow. Plus, we'll put your logo on a custom label for free. There's no setup costs. Also, we'll give you a free UPC, and our turnaround time is super fast.
Okay, well, that's a lot of savings right there.
Yep. And the part that makes me proud of what we're doing is we're helping independent stores build their own brand and make more money doing it.
I love that you have the independent pet store's success in mind. Your products have grown my chew department exponentially. Plus, customers love seeing our name on products. It makes them feel like they're supporting local in a real way.
And honestly, it's nice just to have something different than what the big box guys carry.
Exactly. We're here to help the independent retailers compete with big brands.
Check out everything at artvarkpet.com. That's ARTVARK pet.com. And if you want a $600 design pack for free and to avoid those pesky setup fees, plus get 10% off your first order, be sure to mention the Pet Shop Girls sent you.